start now so they get the extra days.
Yeah.
For the
I know Rabbi Chaim is away for a month.
For a month?
Once.
Or more.
Good for him.
You have a legacy. You created a legacy, Arnold. You created a legacy.
Yeah.
How was your trip? You had a good time?
Excellent, thank you.
Wow. Israel, London, Chasana, Gewaldig. Are you doing okay, Mr. Schneider?
I'm doing okay.
Baruch Hashem. So what happened last week? Everybody was here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Everything was perfect.
Everything was perfect. So maybe I
Okay,
should have
that's
stayed
the
longer.
We miss you, Jess, you know.
Yeah.
We missed you, but
We
we
learned
did not
we
miss
Otherwise,
us.
everything was okay.
6 different approaches we learned last week on why Moses struck the rock out of the more than 30 that are out there.
That's a good class. Okay, so in that case we're going to learn now. Parshas Balak, page 856 or 857 in the English. Balak. Balak is a name, right? Balak is a name. You know the story with the husband and wife who came to the rabbi for a name. A name is a very fascinating discussion. There's all kinds of stories which have to do with names. People get very sensitive when it comes to name, especially the in-laws. Everybody wants to have the child being named after their family member. It's all to do. I'm sure everybody has a name story, right? In his family, in his friends' families. We all have name stories. Can we share some stories? Can we give everybody a chance to share a name story? Or better not to. But anyway, the husband and wife are both arguing very much. He wants the child who was born should be named after his grandfather. She, who carried the baby for 9 months and went through the burdening of sleepless nights and hard labor, feels that she deserves the child should be named after her grandfather. Back and forth and back, and they finally decided to come to the rabbi and discuss it with him. Coming to the rabbi, and the rabbi, a nice Jewish rabbi, has to use a creative response and imagination. So he says, you know what, let's try to develop a compromise. Maybe we can figure out a name which will join both names together. You know, by the way, that's how the name Schneor came about. The Alter Rebbe is named Schneor, but he wasn't the first Schneor. Schneor was an elderly name called Schneer. You ever heard the name Schneer? Like Schneer Zalman? So who would the name Schneer? This is just a story in the story. Where did the name Schneer came about? A similar story. Husband and wife arguing, each one wants to have the name. And when they came to the rabbi trying to create a compromise, the rabbi asked, what was the name of your grandfather? The husband said his name was Meir. And turned to the wife, and what was the name of your grandfather? And she said his name was Uri. He wanted Meir. She wanted Uri. And the rabbi said, Meir in Hebrew means light, or. And Uri means or, light. So both of you represent light. So let's call them Shnei Or, the double light. And that's how the name Schneer came about.
Very interesting.
Oh, so this story what I'm telling you is even more interesting. Why? Because when the rabbi is trying to create a compromise, so then finally they agreed, whatever the rabbi said. So the rabbi turns to the husband and says, okay, so what was the grandfather you want to name after? His name was Yosef. So he turned to his wife, and what's the grandfather that you want to name after? So she says his name was Yosef. So the rabbi says, in that case, why are you fighting? Yosef and Yosef, let's share the name, Yosef. So she said, no, my grandfather Yosef was a smart man, a learned man, a scholarly man. His grandfather Yosef, Ashley Mazel, didn't know anything about anything, a simple, peasant. I don't want to be named after him. I want him to be Yosef, my grandfather Yosef.
Yeah, really.
The rabbi now has to be creative. He says, look, I have a solution for you. Let's name him Yosef. If he grows up to be a scholarly, learned man, then you know he's named after your grandfather. If he ends up being raised and growing up to be a shlemazel, then you know he's named after your husband's grandfather. But let's keep him to Yosef. Names throughout our history had covered a lot of ground in a lot of situations and discussions, and the truth is it is a very serious concept, because when it comes from a Jewish perspective, especially the way it's being elaborated by Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism and Hasidism, the name of a person is not just an identification code. I am named with this name so people know how to identify me. I can be identified in my documents, in my office work. People know how to relate to me and onward. No. From a Jewish perspective, naming someone in the name of something represents a channel of energy related to that person. The neshama is being drawn to energize the individual through the name that he is given. The letters of the name, each letter supports and strengthens the energy which belongs to that individual. Where do we find it in the Torah? So we all are very familiar with the famous story of the first matriarch, Sarah. Her original name was Sarai, Sin Reish Yud. And Sarai did not have kids. And she's becoming a very old woman, 90 years old, there's still no kids. And then she's finally given a promise that you are going to be blessed with a child. But she can't accept it. And the reason she can't accept it because she knows that till now, all the doctors that she went to and all the checkups that she did, they all determined that Sarah is not having a child. So she can't even believe herself that it's possible for her ever to give birth to a child. And what does God tell her? You're right. You're right. You can't have a child. But the only reason you cannot have a child is because your name is spelled Sarai. But I'm going to have you change your name. From Sarai, it's going to become Sarah. And the Yud changing to a Hey became the source of support to Sarah becoming the mother of Yitzchak. And as the Kabbalah explains, that the Yud is a very tiny dot kind of letter, which is the masculine letter, the letter which represents tzimtzum, restraint. The Hey is where the letter is expanded. There is 3 lines to a Hey. There is openings to the Hey. There's an opening in the bottom, there's an opening on the left. The Hey is a letter which is associated with expansion, with breaking out of barriers. And once she took the Hey into her name, she became a mother. Not only is it the story with Sarai, the same story happened with all of the matriarchs. You know, when Rachel doesn't give birth, and she's also barren for many, many years, and now she's finally realizing an idea. And what is the idea? He tells her husband, let's have Bilha, the maid. And she says, by bringing in Bilha into the relationship, Ulai hebone mimeno. Perhaps I'm going to be built through here. And Bilha is having children with Jacob. And you wonder, what is she thinking? Why is Bilha going to help here to become a mother, which later became to Yosef and Benjamin? If Bilha is going to have a child, so Bilha is going to become a mother. And why is she saying, Ulai ibane mimeno, perhaps I'm going to build myself up by you, Yaakov, bringing in Bilha in their relation? And Chassidus explains that Rachel had one problem. She was lacking a very important letter in the name that every other of the matriarchs had. Sarah had a Hey. Rivka had a Hey. Leah has an Hey. Rachel was the only one with not a Hey. Bilha, how do you spell Bilha in the Torah? Beit Lamed, Hey, double Hey. So she says, okay, let's bring in Bilha, Ulai, let me take one of the Heys of Bilha's name, and through that I'm going to build myself up to become a mother. And that Hey was actually added into Rachel's name, to Bilha, and that's how she merited to give birth to Joseph and Benjamin. To the point that it's brought down in the code of Jewish law, the Ramah brings, and Maimonides writes it in the laws of Teshuvah, that there are times when a person is in a very serious condition, that changing his name will bring about a new source of energy and cure. Like Sarah. Like the story of Sarah is the classic example. Changing a name, there's actually a prayer associated with changing a name. In the olden days, they used to actually change your name completely, meaning they used to remove the old name and introduce you a old new name. So your name could have been Moshe, and they said from now on his name is not Moshe anymore, his name is Chaim. And the name became Chaim. Chaim became a new name. Right? Mm-hmm. Chaim became a new name. In later days, we don't remove the name completely, but we add a name. So you have people, their name is Shalom, they became Chaim Shalom, or Chaya Yenta. Or, you add names which are associated with life, with support, with energy. Alter is a famous Yiddish name, which used to be added for children who were very sick. It used to be named Alter, because Alter means old, meaning he's going to live an elderly age. He's going to live up to live an older age, and so on. So this is when we talk about names. And in that case, we have a very, very open question. Anybody who starts to read this week's Parsha, what is the name of the Parsha? Balak. You know who Balak was? Balak was an anti-Semite. Balak was an anti-Semite. He sees the Jewish people are about to cross his town. No one is planning to hurt him. No one has any reason to start up war with them. They are just looking to pass by his city, and he is freaking out completely, looking to destroy them, thinking that if conventionally it's not going to work, let's try to work in unconventional matters. Right? Unconventional methods, which today they call it what? Nuclear and so on. And he says, I'm going to hire a magician, a witchcrafter, a prophet, to curse them. And hopefully through curse, I should be able to destroy them. And this is the whole story in the entire story of this week's Parsha. This is the story of the Parsha. Balak sees what the Jews did to the Moabites, and he decides that he hires Bilam. Bilam doesn't want to come. He offers him money. That eventually he comes. He tries many different ways to introduce his curses, but since God has decided it's not a time to curse, his curses are turned out to be the greatest blessings and the ultimate prophecies. But this is what Balak had in mind. And the question which begs explanation, why would Balak deserve to have an entire Parsha in the Torah named after him? We don't have a Parsha called Abraham. We don't have a Parsha called Moses. We don't have a Parsha called Yitzchak. We don't have a Parsha called Yaakov. You have many Parshas, which the second word of the Parsha is a name of a patriarch. Parshas Vayetze. What's the name of the Parsha? How does the Parsha begin? Vayetze Yaakov mi Be'er Sheva. You could have called the Parsha Yaakov? No, I'm going to call it Vayetze. Vayetze means what? He went out. Who went out? Go learn. You're going to find out who went out. So call it Yaakov. And let's learn what Yaakov did. No, Yaakov doesn't have a Parsha in his name. Eile told that Yitzchak ben Avram. Parshas Toldos. You don't call it Yitzchak. You call it Parshas Toldos. No Parsha. You know, Balak. Yes, it's right too. And it's also this explanation. But here you have a man that is clearly an evil man. A very bad person. You see in the Parsha how bad and nasty he was. And he asked every Jew, every child this week, what Parsha are we? Balak. Who is Balak? Oh, Fui is anti-Semite. Why are you calling it Balak? Why you keep on naming your whole Parsha Balak? Call it Parshas. What's the first word? Vayar. Balak. Let's call it Parshas Vayar. What's wrong? Vayar. We have a Parsha called Vayera. So call it Parshas Vayar. Why is Balak? Why does Balak deserve to carry our whole Parsha on his name? Especially as we see in the Medrash that Balak is considered worse than many of our enemies. Why? Because we see usually enemies which were trying to fight with us, conventionally going out to war. I mean, you go to war, some win, some lose. So not necessarily anybody who goes to fight against us by war is hoping to destroy us completely. He knows that by going to a conventional war, there's going to be losses in both sides. And some will escape, and some will survive. What does Balak do? Balak, as we see in this week's Parsha, is inviting a sorcerer. He's inviting a very negative spiritual power which is going to use the power of his mouth to accuse us before God, and by that destroying us. That was the whole story of Bilam. What was Bilam's power? Bilam said, Moses, his relationship to God is through his mouth. He speaks to God, introduces the people before God, he advocates for them before God, he begs for them before God. If he's using his mouth, let me use my mouth too. And I'm sure that he was looking, and if he would look good, and if God would have only let him, he could have found a long list of garbage to speak about our deficiencies. Right? And that was the plan. He's going to talk negatively against us. And he's going to pump the upper court with so much negativity against us that that's how he's going to destroy us all. Because it's not going to be against the individuals. This is going to be against the entire nation. And that was his plan. And for that he's considered one of the worst of our enemies. And yet, you have an entire Parsha which is named after him. So the question is, why is this Parsha named Parshas Balak? It's not fitted, it's not right to have a Torah portion of an entire Torah week discussing and learning about Balak is one thing, but to title it and the entire week live with the time. So we say, what's this week? Parshas Balak, Parshas Balak, Parshas Balak, Parshas Balak. Who wants to hear the name Balak? I don't want to hear about it. Imagine you have a Parsha called Adluf, or a Parsha called Parshas Amalek. Amalek. Amalek is a biblical story. Have an entire Parsha called, what's this Parsha? Amalek. What Parsha? Amalek. What's this Parsha? Hitler.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Balak is first one.
Parsha Stalin. I mean, what's going on over here? That's exactly what Balak was. Can you believe having a name Stalin for a Parsha? So Stalin is a modern day Balak. And Hitler is a modern day Balak. And just as in modern day we wouldn't relate to our entire week, we would have on our calendar every day it should say the first day to the week of Hitler, the second day to the week of Hitler, the third day to the week of Hitler. So we should have assumed, looking to the eyes, to the biblical eyes, that doesn't fit to have an entire week, an entire Parsha, that every day we have to live with the name of Balak. As they say in Hebrew, it's a lo yafer. Right, Liz? Not, how do you say it? You say it very nicely always. It's a lo yafer.
Nice. It's not nice.
It's not nice, exactly. Shtot HaKoyach. Balak. Who is this Balak guy? Why do we have to deal with it? Must be that there's something about Balak which perhaps carries something positive. And if it's a positive power, that's why we are living with that, and that's what we're going to try to understand tonight. But before that, I want to speak a little bit more about this naming thing. There's a beautiful Gemara found this in Yuma. Oh. What?
How do you do that? How you take out with the book and you open on the right page for the first time?
It's on the page what is open.
From my study.
There's not only page.
That must be that David Schneider was using it last night.
No, from my study, Rabbi knows exactly
How
where
does it
to
do?
turn
I
it.
don't know.
The Gemara in Yuma, page 28b, discusses a man with the name of Ben Kamtsar. Ben Kamtsar was an interesting person. He was a very He was an artist, and he had something that nobody else knew. He was able to take 4 pens between his fingers, and if there was a word of 4 letters, he would write the entire word at one time. So imagine you put 4 pens between the 4 fingers, and you have to write a word which has 4 letters, and somehow you write the Aleph and the Beis and the Gimel and the Dalet simultaneously. You are able to control every letter with a pen. And then Kamtsar, obviously,
Excuse me,
yes,
which period was this? About when did
this is during the temple time period. The temple time period.
Sure.
This is the man named Ben Kamtsar. And the Gemara says that the rabbis wanted very much to learn how to do it. It had to do also with spelling the name of God, something they would have liked to write it all at once. And he kept it to himself. He did not want to share that information and that idea of how to do it. He absolutely did not want to share it with nobody. So the Gemara says regarding Ben Kamtsar, the sages introduced a verse which fits to Ben Kamtsar's life. And what's the verse they used? The verse in Proverbs. V'shem Reshayim Yirkav. And the name of the wicked will rot. Rot, like a rotting tomato. So his name should also rot. And the Gemara said, what does it mean when it says that the name of the wicked shall rot? Amar Rabbi Elazar, says Rabbi Elazar, rust shall grow on their names. When you have a vessel which has rust, what do? You throw it out. Try to clean it, try to remove the rust. If it's rusted and it doesn't go anywhere, you throw it out. So, what's his name? Rabbi Elazar said, the name of the wicked should be filled with rust. Meaning, the loy maskinem ishmayu, we do not use their names. No one is going to name his child Ben Kamtsar. Why? Because this man was a rotten man. That he had something that would have helped and support for others to know. He was so miser and cheap and nasty to keep it just to himself. And from therefore, we're going to have his name Rat. How does a name rat? How does a tomato rat? You leave it for too long and no one uses it, it rats. So when you take Ben Kamtsar and you have his name unused and nobody else has children the name of Ben Kamtsar, that's how his name is going to rot. Then the Gemara goes on with a child which his name was Doeg. And Doeg apparently was a very beautiful child, and the Gemara says, are you sure that the name of the wicked is meant to rat? You know who Doeg, the original Doeg, was? You know the story of Doeg with King Saul. Doeg came to King Saul and he told them in the book of Samuel, right? He told King Saul that David is hiding in the city of Nov. And there's a high priest there, and the rest of the priests are protecting him. That was the time that King David and King Saul were. King Saul was chasing after King David. And when Doeg told them this information, King Saul went, he killed over 80 priests of the city of Nov for providing shelter to King David. Right? So who's in Doeg is always remembered, Doeg the Adoimiyite, as a wicked man. Because he came and informed about David's hiding, which led to the destruction and the killing of so many Kohanim of the city of Nov. So the Gemara says, but isn't this child called Doeg, who was such a special child that his mother used to measure every day its growth. He grew an inch, whether by his stomach or by his height. She used to take gold comparable to the amount of his weight every day and donate it to the temple, to the Bet HaMikdash. So we see that the child is named Doeg and his mother raised him so beautifully. The Gemara says, but you don't know the end of this boy Doeg. And the Gemara goes on and explains how brutally this Doeg was murdered during the destruction of the temple. And a part of it is because he had bad luck. Also bad luck. His bad luck was also supported, so to speak, by the fact that he carried a name after a wicked person called Doeg. And that is the name which Shem Reshaim Irkav, the name of the wicked Ra.
So why would his mother name him that?
She should know any better.
Maybe she knew and she thought, it's cool. Don't you have kids named today with so many crazy names which parents think it's the cool thing to name them after something which doesn't even exist, or some type of imaginary character. I was by a baby naming for a girl, an Israeli family. I don't remember the name now, but the mother, I came and I made a special blessing for the name of this girl. I don't have to have a bris, so it was a nice event. And I'm giving the blessing. When it comes to the name, I say the name is going to be. She tells me some name which I never heard. So I repeat that name, the daughter of Sarah or Rivka, one of those common names. And then I said, okay, now your mother's going to explain who she named after. Some flower in Hawaii. That she loves and she thinks it's great. Nothing to nothing. Whatever, some garnish. And that's the name. I said, no, I don't do it. No, that's the name. Which, you can name your child whatever you want, but the name has meaning. The name energizes the person. And there's actually a big discussion in Jewish law. What names can you name after? The Chida, the famous Sephardic sage who lived 200 years ago, the Chaim Yosef David Azulai, he wrote many, many books. He was from Hebron. Then he was sent to raise money for the community. He wrote many books. He got involved in different libraries. While he was traveling to Europe, he printed many books. And he passed away in the city of Livorno in Italy. Non the Chida, very famous scholar and sage. He has a book called Shem HaGdolim, which he discusses different names of rabbis and sages and their short biographies of their life. So he actually discusses, we have names. Ishmael. There was a high priest called Ishmael Kohen Gadol. But the Ishmael was not a good person. He was a guy who was thrown out of the house of Abraham. How come the people named their child Ishmael? Even Eliezer. And Eliezer wanted to marry, what's her name? Rivka. And Eliezer wanted to marry Avram's daughter. Not Rivka, Avram's daughter, and Avram said, I'm sorry. No, Eliezer wanted his daughter to marry Yitzchak. And Abraham said, I'm sorry, you're a cursed servant. You can't be connected and marry a blessed Abraham. But still, Eliezer is a name, common name. So the Chidah says that a lot of it has to do with the intention of the parents. In other words, the name Eliezer is a name of a person which maybe was considered cursed for Abraham. But the name is also a name which has a positive meaning. Eliezer, God should help. That's why Moses called his son Eliezer, right? He had a son Gershom, and he had a son Eliezer. Same thing, Elisha. Elisha can be, Ishmael. Ishmael can be Abraham's son Ishmael, which is an Arabic name. Or you can say Ishmael, may God listen to me. So it's depending what you think, what you have in mind, when you name and when you call someone Ishmael, when you call that name. Or Nimrod. You know, in Israel there's a name called Nimrod.
Yeah, I don't understand.
And you know what Nimrod is?
Yeah.
Nimrod was the one who rebelled against God. He was the one who threw Abraham into a furnace. But Jews have children named Nimrod. And someone once told me, why is he named Nimrod? He said, because my father wanted me to rebel against the negativity of this world. So he used the same connotation of the word Nimrod, which is to rebel, to revolt, but not against God, to revolt against evil. And at that time, Nimrod becomes a kosher name, right?
You don't hear the name Job ever being used, though.
Job?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there are Job.
There are Jobs after the curses and his tough luck in the Bible.
No, yeah, everything. Everything. Go and Google.
Steve Jobs.
Ah?
It was named Steve Jobs.
Last name.
Apple.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs? What was Steve Jobs connected? How does he come in here?
His name?
Steve Jobs is Jobs because of Eo. Interesting.
In Hebrew it says Dio. Job it's in English, right?
Yeah, Job, right?
Dio.
Eo, Job.
Why is it Job if it's Dio? I don't understand.
It's like Jacob and it's
No
Jacob.
connection.
Oh,
Jacob, it's Jacob.
Why Chronicles of the book of or Proverbs or who knows, Leviticus and Genesis and Deuteronomy, word, who knows? There is a special, when you get younger, you can go to college, they have a special course which goes into the insights of languages. In Hebrew it's called Balshanut. What do you call it in English? There's a program in college.
linguistics.
Huh?
Majority.
Huh?
Majority.
That's
No.
Jared.
No,
I think it's linguistics.
Linguistics.
It's the study
no,
of
that's languages.
Language.
It's the study of languages.
Study of
Yeah,
languages. Balshanut.
Scientist. Joseph.
Why is this Parsha called Balak?
Tell us already.
Finally.
You're waiting.
Oh, you're waiting.
Or you're asking us.
To be continued.
Gotta come back
Coming
next
from
week.
Balak.
Balak. Why Balak? Balak was negativity. To the point that he was considered ultimate negativity because he didn't have an agenda. Sometimes there are people who fight with us because they want, or they're afraid, they want our money, they think we have. They want our land. They think that we are going to pursue them. There are people who have issues with the Jews. And then there is like the story of Moab. Nobody is interested in you. We are making our way to Israel. And our way to Israel has nothing to do with you. We're not looking to conquer you. We are just making our way there. And it happens to be that he is one of the cities along the way to get to the Jordan River, to cross it from the east to the west, and to enter to Israel. And he gets into such a difficult war and fight, well, this is simply anti-Semitism. There's no other reason for it. And it's hatred which has no explanation, there's no reason, there's no way to understand why do you hate us so much. Makara, what are we doing to you? The Iranians today, something. What do you want from Israel? You are far from there. Israel, there's nothing, there's no plans to attack you or anything. And you have such poverty and such needs, and all your efforts you're putting in to go fight Israel. What do you want? Is Israel interested in Iran? We were good friends with Iran in the times of the Shah. It was a beautiful relationship. We have nothing against your people, against your government. No, we're going to destroy you. A hatred. We want to destroy you. That's our plans. And they say it openly. What do they call it? Hamashugas. Anytime when evil is fighting goodness and kindness, we have to know why does it exist? Why is it there? Is it there because it's empowered to fight us and to challenge us and maybe to put us down? Or is it there just for us to be able to stay strong and overcome it and make us even stronger? When there is a rational war, which there are many rational wars in history, then obviously it is to try to keep certain rights for them or for yourself. Then the tactics is to win, to be strong. When there is an irrational war, the only thing which is expected from you is now stay strong and get rid of it. Don't deal with it. They are not looking to win something. You're not going to gain anything by bringing them into the community and offer them some extra assistance or opportunity. They will calm down. They're not looking for it. They are looking simply to destroy you. This is called absolute evil. Absolute evil is to bring out the strength of the person to say, if that's who you are, I'm going to destroy you. And the only reason it's there is for us to become strong and express our strength and get rid of them. That's the only reason they exist. That's like the Kabbalah talks about dealing with a trial. We all know that there is a type of service which we engage in the physical world, and we elevate it, and we rectify it, and we purify it, and on and onward. But then there are certain trials which are not for that to be elevated or to be rectified or to be purified. It is simply to give us the opportunity to express our strength and say, I will ignore you or get rid of you, just get away from me. You know, when Abraham went to offer his son, Isaac, on the Akedah, that was the first trial, considered the classic trial. God only wanted to see one thing. He wanted to make Abraham strong. So he gave him this test. You see, you can do it. And the Medrash says there was a river which was formed, not letting Avram to make his way to the Mount Moriah. And the river didn't exist before. Suddenly Avram sees there's a river here. And he realized that the river is not a natural phenomenon which is there from day one, and he has to figure out how to deal with that, maybe go around it, maybe tell God, I'm sorry, the road is closed, I can't make my way. He knew right away that this river is there, a pop-up, just to try to challenge him. Are you going to continue walking now that you see a river? Or are you going to say, okay, I'm sorry, I can't do it? What does the Medrash say? He walked into the river, and he continued walking, and to the point that the river disappeared. Meaning because the river was a phenomenon introduced with one and only purpose. And the purpose was what? To create a challenge, watching, are you going to overcome? Or are you going to get afraid now and say, okay, I can do it, I'm going home? The moment that Abraham was able to personify force and strength and say, I am continuing, you don't exist. Your only existence is to try to oppose a challenge to me. So I'm going to continue walking. Ultimately, the river disappeared. This is the idea of dealing with evil when it's there only to introduce a challenge. It brings out the strength of the person. The Zohar brings a famous example that Alter Rebbe brings in Tanya. The Alter Rebbe in Tanya brings the example from the Zohar. It calls it Kemashal Hazonah Bezohar HaKadosh. What does the Zohar speak about a Zonah? You know the Zonah, an inappropriate woman? Which the Zohar says that a Zonah was hired by a king to challenge the prince. And she's going to get paid to challenge him to see if he's going to abstain your challenges. Meaning, your interest is not to get him to sin with her. Your real interest is to introduce a challenge for him, enabling to see that he is overcoming the challenge. And then she's going to get paid even more. Because this is really the ultimate goal in this scenario, which was created and formed for that opportunity. This is called dealing with evil, not in a time of elevating it, rectifying it, rather to express our strength that we are able to overcome it. You come back to Balak. You know what Balak was?
Showing sight.
Balak personifies as evil. But it wasn't evil for us to work with and try to introduce to some ideas and bring him in to some type of community service and see if we can work things out together. Balak was a man that was created simply for us to say, you are evil. And we are not going to be affected or relate to you in any way. And that's what we stood strong against it. And what happened in the end? Nothing. This old Balak and Bilam disappeared. Only blessings came out. the biggest blessings came out from the words of Bilam and Balak. Matovu Olecha Yaakov. The prophecies about Mashiach, because that's why they were created. If you wonder why the Parsha is named Balak, because Balak reminds us and gives us the opportunity to realize that evil is not there with its own volume, with its own validation. Evil is only there for us to overcome it. That's why it's here. It's for us to become stronger. Yesterday was a Hasidic holiday called the 13th of Tammuz. with the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak, was released from exile by the communist government in 1927. The previous Rebbe was arrested by the communists and he was sentenced to death and so on. He actually was very strict in his approach. When he was arrested, he said, and he writes it in his diary, I made up my mind that they don't exist. That's what he wrote. And he wrote a clear diary of every aspect which went through in jail with them. And every part of the diary is, you don't exist. They wanted them to sign paper. I'm not signing. I agree to that. I don't agree to that. Every time that they opposed the threat, they looked at them like, why? To the point when the guy picks up his gun and he says, I'm going to kill you. And the Rebbe looks at him and says, and why do you think that that's going to make me speak? Like, and he says to him, that can only cause fear for somebody who has many gods and only one world. And the Rebbe says, I have only one God and two worlds, and I have nothing to be afraid. When they take me out of this world, I have another world is waiting for me. His whole approach, and what happened? They melted. They had to give in. Kept them alive. The process continued for years to keep Judaism in the hardest, most difficult challenges in Russia. Till today, Yiddishkeit in Russia has to do with the fact that the Rebbe stood up against communism and said, you don't exist, you're not going to threaten Judaism here. So it was difficulties, but the process continued and continued and continued to the point where eventually Judaism is flourishing. That's what happens in Russia today. I just came back from a wedding. My niece got married in Argentina. A girl born and raised in Argentina. And who did she marry? A boy who was born and raised in Russia.
Come on.
Wow.
Really?
In Moscow.
How
The
did
son
they
of Rabbi Lazar from Russia.
The main...
The main rabbi. That was the wedding. A beautiful family, 12 kids. The fourth child married by the Lazars, born and made in Russia. Beautiful Yiddish-speaking children, Hasidic children, involved their whole life in teaching and spreading Yiddishkeit in Russia. And that was the wedding. It was a Russian-Argentinian wedding. Neither is the bride's father from Argentina or Russia. My brother was born in Jerusalem. Nor is the groom's father from Argentina and Russia. Actually, Rabbi Lazar was born in Italy. His father is an American boy who the Rebbe sent in 1959 to Italy, in Milan. He still lives in Milan. We were one of the Chabad rabbis in Milan. And this couple, this family, is keeping and working in bringing Yiddishkeit to Russia today. And it's seen by the wedding and you sing, Yet, Yekabo, Kromi, Boga, Navo, and you say to yourself, that was the victory. That song was actually introduced the day that the previous Rebbe got his announcement that he was liberated. So there was a chassid in Kostroma, that was the exiled city that they sent him to. So there was a chassid with the name of Michal Dvorkin, and when he heard that the Rebbe is released, he went dancing in the streets of Kostroma. Niet, Yekavo, Kromi, which means there's nothing else but God. So you can have a Balak, and the only reason he's there because we are able to stand again to say you don't exist. And even when you do exist, it's only to show us that we can overcome you. And in that case, welcome Balak to our life. We love to have you as a Parsha because this introduces the strength, It's all about, you know what it's all about? It's all about how to relate to it and eventually enjoy the real meaning of it. You know the story, the Jew left Russia? So the Jew left Russia, finally got a permit to immigrate from Russia. And he had gold, and you can't take out gold of Russia. So what do? You got to use the Yiddish cup, right? So he took the gold, 6 pounds of gold, and he melted it into a very beautiful image of Stalin. Now he comes to the border, and the border patrol in Russia asked him, "What are you taking with you?" He says, "Oh, this is the man, this is the leader, this is the son of the nations. How can I leave Russia without having an image of Stalin with me? He saved us, he protected us." And this guy is melting from hearing such beautiful words. He said, sure, take it. He arrives in Israel. Oops, a golden image. The border patrol sees them in the meches and says, hey, what are you bringing in here? He says, oh, this master, this bad guy, this starts cursing out that Stalin, Mach Shemoy, in charge of so much evil, and the guy in the border is standing there, a Sephardic, nice young Jew, and he's like melting from hearing such expression of frustration that this Russian Jew has against that statue. He lets him through. And finally he comes home and the kids see open the suitcase at top. What did you bring with you? 6 pounds of gold. You understand? You can bring the gold.
It's hard to believe.
And you bring the piece of gold with you, but you have to know how to introduce it. God wants us to realize our strength. He takes our old Parsha in the Torah and he calls it what? Balak. And when it comes to Parsha's Balak, so it depends. If you don't learn Chassidus and you don't realize the inside story of what Balak was all about, so you get all nervous. Ooh, Balak is in town this week. Relax. Balak is in town because Balak teaches us and supports us and gives us the great value to realize that with evil like Balak, which is there just to fight and to hate you, you're going to win by just showing him that your existence is to serve a challenge to me. And if that's who you are, I'm going to say no to your challenge. And that's how I'm going to overcome. First taste?
Good first day.
Good first taste. Very good. Wishing you all a wonderful night and a good Shabbos.
Thank you.
And I will see you, B'ezrat Hashem, tomorrow morning.